I didn't clap when the cake came out. I was too busy watching my mother's smile, the kind that slices, not softens. At my sister's birthday dinner, she raised her glass, glanced at me like I was a smudge on the rim, and said, "All the money we spent on you was a waste." The table laughed. Even the waiter hesitated, not sure if he should pour or pray. "My name is Harper Vale. I'm 28. And if you think I swallowed that quietly like all the other times, stay with me because this is the last night I ever paid for their cruelty." I didn't argue. I tapped my phone, opened my banking app, and sent my mother $1. The ping landed in her purse like a trap snapping shut. "Debt paid," I said, calm, even. Aunt Claire cocked an eyebrow. "Cute," she purred. "Next time, don't bother showing up." I lifted my glass. "To Aunt Claire," I said, voice steady. "Toasting on my dime, until tonight." A few cousins snickered, then looked away when my mother's smile thinned. The room smelled like butter and bragging rights. My sister, Ella, stared at her glittering candle as if it could rescue her from the fallout. I took a bite of cake, tasted nothing, and made a silent promise to the girl I used to be, the girl who babysat through finals, who co-signed and covered and answered every emergency at 2 a.m., that tonight would be the last time I paid to be insulted. I left before dessert plates were cleared. Freezing rain stitched silver across the windshield, streetlights smeared into tired gold. I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I drove home, sat cross-legged on my bed, and opened the laptop that had quietly held a decade of receipts. One by one, I cut the cords they pretended were family ties. Joint credit line closed. Auto payments canceled. Family phone plan transferred off my account. The streaming bundles, gym memberships, Aunt Claire's boutique card she swore was only for emergencies, all mine, all gone. Confirmations landed in my inbox like small detonations. Action completed. Action completed. Action completed. With every click, the room grew quieter, no buzzing favors, no overdraft alarms, no text saying quick question that always meant open your wallet. By morning, they noticed. "Harper, my cards declined." Mom texted at 8:14. "Gas station. Embarrassing." "Why are you freezing accounts? That's family money," Dad wrote at 8:26. "Fix this," Aunt Claire demanded at 8:41. "Your mother's humiliated." I brewed coffee, let the phone buzz itself hoarse on the counter. At 9:02, Ella's name lit up. I almost answered because she'd always been the quiet one, the one who apologized for breathing too loud. But I let it ring out. I'd spent too many years mistaking softness for safety. At 10:17 my mother called. I answered on the second ring. "You think this is funny?" she snapped. "I couldn't even pay for gas." "You told me I was a waste," I said. "I'm honoring the budget." "This affects everyone," she hissed. "You can't just pull the plug." "Mom," I said softly, "I was the plug." Silence, then the line went dead. At noon, Aunt Claire texted, "Enjoy your little rebellion. When this family turns its back for good, don't come crying." I stared at her message and almost laughed. You can't turn your back on someone you've only ever faced for handouts. That night, I poured a glass of cheap red, opened my budgeting sheet, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. A month without leaks. My money, still there. My future, unmortgaged. I exhaled and felt the floor steady beneath me. The building buzzer screamed at 8:03 a.m. the next day. I checked the camera and smiled without humor. My mother and Aunt Claire stood in the lobby like prosecutors, coats armor stiff, lips rehearsed. I buzzed them in. If they wanted a performance, I would give them documentation. And a door. They entered my apartment like they owned it. My mother didn't even say hello, just dropped her coat onto my couch and scanned the place with that same judgmental tilt of her chin. Aunt Claire stood beside her, arms crossed, already rehearsing whatever speech they'd agreed on in the car. "So," Mom said finally, "this is what maturity looks like to you. Humiliating your family in public?" I set down my coffee and leaned against the counter. "No, Mom. This is what boundaries look like. You humiliated yourselves. I just stopped paying for the stage." Aunt Claire scoffed. "We raised you better than this." I smiled, sharp and tired. "Did you?" Because I remember years of being told I was a burden, that I should be grateful for scraps, for being tolerated. My mother's eyes flashed. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" I walked to my desk, opened a drawer, and dropped a neatly stacked pile of papers onto the table between us. Every payment I've made for this family in the last 10 years. Rent, insurance, phone bills, your gym memberships, the time I covered your property tax because you forgot. Mom's face paled as she flipped through the pages: bank statements, transfers, receipts, proof, years of proof. This is petty, she hissed. No, I said evenly, this is math. For once, Aunt Claire was quiet. Her eyes darted between my mother and me like a spectator at a car crash. Then she muttered, "You really let her control everything, didn't you?" "Don't start, Claire," my mother snapped. It was almost poetic watching the two of them unravel, arguing about control when all I'd done was remove it. "Coffee?" I asked casually. Mom blinked. "What coffee?" "The last thing you'll ever get from me," I said, and set the mug down untouched. Her face reddened. "You're cruel." I tilted my head, smiling faintly. "No, Mom, I'm cured." She opened her mouth, but I was already walking toward the door. "Time's up," I said quietly. They left in silence, my mother's perfume trailing behind like a ghost that didn't know it had been exorcised. When the elevator doors shut, I stood in the stillness, heartbeat steady, the quiet louder than any apology I'd never get. But I knew my family they never left without trying to collect. The next morning my phone rang. "Miss Vale," the bank rep said, "we're calling to confirm a transfer of $4,500 from your savings account." My stomach went cold. "No," I said, "that's not authorized." The rep hesitated. "It appears the attempt was made using credentials linked to your family's joint access. The system flagged it and blocked the transfer." My mother's address appeared in the log when I checked it myself, timestamp 2:12 a.m. Of course. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the glow of the laptop screen, realizing how far they were willing to go to keep me leashed. By noon, I called Eli, my old college friend and financial advisor. "They tried to drain it," I said. He exhaled. "You want me to lock everything down?" "No," I said, calm but sharp. "I want to end this legally." Within an hour, Eli connected me to a woman named Grace Reynolds, fraud attorney. Calm voice, sharper mind. I sent her the screenshots, bank logs, message history. By morning, she had drafted the cease and desist, financial harassment, unauthorized access, fraud attempt. I signed it without hesitation. Grace said, "Once this is processed, they'll lose all shared access permanently. Every card, every login, every loophole." "Good," I said. "Let them learn what it feels like when the money actually leaves the room with me." When I hung up, the quiet felt heavier, but this time, it wasn't loneliness, it was sovereignty. At 3:47 p.m., a text came in from an unknown number. "You'll regret this, Harper. We always take care of our own." I laughed softly, typed back 2 words. "Then take care." For the first time in years, I wasn't scared of their threats. I was watching them run out of ammunition. By dawn the next day, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Not from calls those had stopped, but from screenshots. My cousin had forwarded the latest family group chat. My mother was performing again. "She's turned against her own blood," she'd written. "We gave her everything, and she's repaying us with lawyers." The comments poured in like clockwork: pity, outrage, melodrama. Aunt Claire wrote, "No one freezes their own mother's cards unless they've lost their mind." They didn't know I was in that chat under a muted contact name. I watched the hypocrisy scroll by while sipping my coffee, amused by how predictable it all was. The same people who preached family over everything had no idea what that actually meant. Then Aunt Claire wrote something that made me pause. "She thinks she doesn't need family. Let's make sure she doesn't." I didn't flinch. I just took a screenshot and sent it to Grace, my lawyer. Within an hour, she replied, "Perfect. That's evidence. We'll attach it to the harassment file. They're documenting their own downfall." I smiled. For years I'd fought them with emotion. Now I was fighting them with proof. By afternoon, the legal packet was complete: 43 pages of cold, printed truth. I forwarded it to every single contact in that group chat. No caption, no explanation, just documentation. Then I powered off my phone, poured a glass of wine, and sat in silence. A different kind of silence, one that didn't ache. That peace lasted exactly 12 hours. At 9 a.m., the next morning, there was a knock at my door. Not the angry kind, just slow, deliberate. I opened it to find my father standing there, holding a folded piece of paper. He looked older, his hair grayer, his shoulders smaller somehow. For the first time in years, I didn't see a man of authority. I saw someone tired of pretending. "Your mother got served," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. He handed me the paper. It was a printed copy of my cease and desist email, the one I'd sent to the entire family. "She's humiliated," he murmured. "You could have come to us first." I almost laughed. "Dad, I did. Every time you told me to keep the peace, every time you told me to let it go." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "We never meant to make you feel used." "You didn't mean to," I said. "But you did." He looked down at the floor, like maybe if he stared hard enough, he could find the version of me who used to forgive him. "Your mother's furious," he said finally. "She says you've ruined the family name." "The family name ruined itself," I said. "I just stopped funding the illusion." He sank into the nearest chair. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the fridge. Then, softer than I'd ever heard him, he said, "You always were the one who saw through everything." I paused. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something cracked inside me, understanding, maybe. "You could have seen through it too," I said. "You just didn't want to." When he left, I walked him to the door. He turned once, hand on the frame. "She'll never change," he said. "But maybe I can." It wasn't a promise, but it was something. That night, I sat by the window, the city lights blinking like small reminders that life moved on, even when families didn't. For the first time, I didn't feel hate. I felt something stranger. Pity. They'd built their lives on my silence, and now they were watching it collapse in real time. By morning, the quiet had changed. It wasn't absence anymore. It was freedom stretching its limbs. A week passed before I heard from anyone again. Not Mom, not Claire, not even Ella. Then one afternoon, as sunlight poured through my window, I got a message from my younger cousin, Paula. "Just so you know, your mom's still telling people you drained her accounts out of spite, but no one's buying it anymore. They're starting to see who she really is." I stared at the text for a long moment. Once, that kind of rumor would have gutted me. Now, it barely left a mark. You can't be destroyed by a story once you've already told the truth. That night, I sat on my balcony with a mug of coffee, watching rain smear the city lights into soft gold. The quiet didn't feel lonely, it felt earned. I didn't miss them. I missed what family should have been: warmth without conditions, love without invoices. Eli called. "You've been quiet," he said softly. "What's going on in that head of yours?" "I think I'm grieving something that never existed," I admitted. "A family that only lived in my imagination." He paused. "Good," he said finally. "Grieving means you've stopped pretending." I smiled faintly. "Guess so." 2 days later, an envelope arrived in the mail. My father's handwriting. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a short note and a cashier's check for $3,600, the exact amount he once tried to withdraw without my consent. "For what's owed. Not for money. For respect. Thank you for teaching me what it means to earn it." Tears stung before I could stop them. Not because of the check, but because, for the first time, I felt seen, not as a bank account, but as his daughter. I folded the letter, tucked it into my journal, and whispered, "You finally paid attention." The next morning, the rain had stopped. Light spilled across my desk like forgiveness I didn't ask for. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was recognition. And sometimes, that's all you need to start breathing differently. 2 months later, the quiet didn't feel empty anymore. It felt alive. The calls had stopped. The messages had faded. My life finally belonged to me. I moved into a smaller apartment, sunlight on the walls, soft music, no ghosts of old obligations, the kind of silence that doesn't ache. While unpacking, I found an old family photo from Ella's 16th birthday. Everyone smiling, pretending. I almost threw it away, but something stopped me. I slipped it into a drawer not as a memory, but as evidence, proof of what I survived. That evening, I sat at my desk, wrote a letter, and sealed it. It wasn't for them, it was for me. You didn't lose a family. You outgrew a performance. Love isn't measured in money transfers or silence for peace. You built something real, boundaries that don't need apology. Keep them. Protect them. HV was not resive. I placed the letter beside the photo and smiled. Later that night, my phone buzzed one last message from Dad. "Your mom asked about you today. She didn't say it, but I think she misses you." I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back, "That's okay. Missing someone doesn't mean you deserve them back." He replied with a single heart emoji, his quiet way of saying, "I understand." I set my phone down, turned off the lights, and listened to the rain return soft, steady, like a rhythm I finally understood. I wasn't the daughter begging to be loved anymore. I was the woman who learned that peace costs nothing, and once you earn it, you never have to pay again. Debt paid,